If you think of the German language, what does that sound like in your head? Something like this?
Krankenwagen!
If you just nodded your head, you're not alone. So let's talk about how German ended up with this reputation and what this guy has to do with it. Hello, servus, and welcome to my first YouTube video of 2023. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope you all slid over well, as we say in Germany. Ich hoffe, ihr seid gut rübergerutscht. In case you're new here, my name is Feli. I've been living here in Cincinnati, Ohio, on and off since 2016, but I'm originally from Munich, Germany, where I was born and where I lived up until the age of 22. So German is and will forever be my native language. And as a native German speaker, I'm very well aware of the fact that internationally, the German language doesn't have the best reputation. Not only is it considered a very difficult language, but also harsh-sounding, ugly, and aggressive.
Heiße Schokolade mit Schlagsahne zum Frühstück?
Oh my god!
Yeah, which is like, I mean, it's like a nice chocolate soup. Like, why does that sound like that? Like,
Yeah, why does everything in German sound so angry? Parkschein.
Borboleta,
Butterfly.
Schmetterling, Science,
Science.
Yenta.
Ciencia.
Naturwissenschaften!
As you can tell, a very popular approach to imitating a German is to simply scream every single word, even if you're talking about nice things like butterflies or food. Now, of course, this is all comedy, and please don't get me wrong, I don't feel personally offended by this and actually find it pretty funny myself, but over time, I realized that it's not just a trope that's used for comedic purposes, but for many people, this is really close to what they think German actually sounds like. Which is why I usually get a lot of really surprised reactions when people hear me speak German for the first time and notice that I don't sound aggressive at all. Just last month, I got a lot of positive comments on my German Advent calendar readings, for example.
Eines Tages erschien Maria der Engel Gabriel, umgeben von strahlendem Licht.
And last year, I even made a response video to this viral video where I kind of turned the tables and made German the lovely sounding language to show that it can sound a lot nicer than many people think.
Collini, Caro, Coccolare.
Schmusen. By the way, for those of you who would like to learn German as a second language, and I mean the normal sounding version of German, Lingoda has an amazing 2-month language learning challenge that's about to start called the Lingoda Sprint. And if you complete the challenge, you can get up to 100% cash back, so this is a great way to get the New Year's started right and follow through with those New Year's resolutions. Lingoda is an online language school, meaning they offer live classes via Zoom, so you don't have to go anywhere but still get all of the perks of in-person language classes with native level teachers, either in one-on-one or small group classes, to ensure that you get enough time to practice and ask all of your questions. The classes are very well structured, but also always have a really comfortable atmosphere and are super interactive. This is a class that I got to join the other day, for example. It was a B1 level German class on business meetings. Such a helpful topic.
Wir, Frau Meier ist heute noch nicht zu Wort gekommen. Was denken Sie, bitte?
Sehr gut. Welche Situation ist das?
Wenn wir sind zum Beispiel in einer Diskussion und alle haben heute etwas gesagt, aber eine Person fehlt.
And it's not just about grammar and vocab, but about cultural aspects as well.
Wir haben keine Pünktlichkeit. Tut mir so leid, das war wirklich schwer für mich.
Ja, also ganz anders als hier.
Yeah.
You only have a few days left to sign up for the Sprint Challenge, and this one is going to be under the motto of celebrating your language wins. You know, those little moments when you order a coffee for the first time in the new language and they actually understand you, or when you can follow a movie plot for the first time without reading the subtitles. No matter how small or big these language wins are, believe me, they feel so amazing. Like the first time when I was able to participate in American small talk without being completely lost or awkward or didn't know how to respond to the question, "How are you?" I was so proud of myself. If you're ready to celebrate your own language win in a few months, make sure to check out the link in the info box below to sign up for the Lingoda Sprint, where you'll take 15 classes a month for 2 months and get 50% cashback if you follow through with it. Or you can also do the Super Sprint, where it's 30 lessons a month And I kid you not, 100% cash back. And with my code WINWITHFeli, you'll even save $25 on the deposit when you sign up. Now back to the topic. Where does this bad reputation of the German language come from? Well, most people outside of the German-speaking world usually don't have a lot of contact with the language. Unlike English, it's not very present in international pop culture, and it's not the most common choice to learn as a second language either. One topic that people learn and talk about all over the world, though, is World War II, Nazi Germany, and the Holocaust. And rightly so. I mean, it was such a world-altering chapter in history, and it was so cruel and destructive that it's really important to learn about how something like that could happen so that it can be avoided in the future. And as part of that, many people see a lot of footage of this man, Adolf Hitler. Whether it's in school or in documentaries, I'm pretty sure that most of you guys have seen footage of a Hitler speech before. Am I right? And if that's the only or the main exposure you've had to the German language, no wonder you think that we shout everything and sound angry or even scary. Believe me, even to a German native speaker, those speeches sound aggressive. What many people might not realize, though, is that these speeches aren't the most accurate representation of the German language, not even for the time, because the way that Hitler's speeches sound is very much influenced by the circumstances. For one, let's keep the context in mind. These are speeches by a politician and despot who was trying to spread his propaganda and twisted ideologies and brainwash the masses in order to become the ruler of the world, basically. And he knew how to reach his audience, and that often included a lot of drama, passion, and emotion, which meant that he was very loud for the most part. So yes, there is indeed a lot of shouting in these speeches.
Gib du jetzt deine Stimme ab, wenn ja, dann tritt für mich ein, so wie ich für dich eingetreten bin.
In addition to that, due to the poor quality of microphones at the time, he actually used a speaking technique that many actors also used at the time to ensure that people could understand him better. That's the reason why he over-enunciated most of his words, and also why he did this really strong rolled R, which is probably one of the best-known characteristics of his speech.
An diesen Opfern ein unerbittliches Gericht zu halten.
Instead of using the regular German R in the back of the throat, the uvular R, he used his tongue, like in Spanish. I usually call that the rolled R, but it's also referred to as trilled R. The reason for this was simply that the uvular R in the back of the throat gets lost more easily, which could have led to confusion. Just to give you an example, if the sound quality is muffled, the word Brauch could easily sound like Bauch, for example. Brauch, Bauch. Not that that's a word that Hitler would use a lot, but you get the idea. He even did this at the end of words sometimes, where the R usually isn't pronounced at all in standard German, like here in the word wir, or when he says für. In standard German, you'd use neither the trilled R nor the uvular R here, but kind of just pronounce it as an A and say wir and für, instead of wir and für. I think only in Swiss German they pronounce those R's at the end of words. Now, this whole technique actually has a name and even a set of rules that a group of German linguists and theater directors agreed on during a conference in 1898. It's called Bühnendeutsch, so stage German or Bühnenaussprache. And it's what you'd hear on theater stages at the time, but also in movies and on TV.
Ein Teil der Finsternis, wie sich das Licht gebar.
A few other rules of stage German included that the consonants P, T, and K had to be over-enunciated, so they ended up sounding relatively sharp. And I also read something about how consonants like D or B were supposed to be voiced in spots where they'd usually be devoiced in colloquial German. This might be a little hard to picture, but a voiced consonant means that there's a tone coming from your vocal cords while you say it, whereas devoiced would mean that there is no tone, but just the consonant sound. The best example to show this is the letter S. So a voiced S would be Z, there's a tone coming, and a devoiced S would be S. just the sound. There are many more rules to this, but I feel like altogether, those probably also contributed to the very unique cadence and intonation of these speeches. What hardly anybody knew at the time was that Hitler actually took lessons for this with the German opera singer Paul Devrient. Hitler previously had been told by doctors that he was on the verge of vocal cord paralysis due to overexertion, so he paid Devrient to accompany him on his propaganda trips for about half a year in 1932 to teach him speaking techniques and give him acting and rhetoric lessons to further improve his stage presence. In order to protect Hitler's reputation, Devrient had to keep this a secret though, and it only came out after his death. Now I know the video is called How Hitler Ruined the Reputation of the German Language, but it would be even more accurate to limit this to Hitler's public speech style, because in private, he actually sounded completely different. But due to the fact that there are hardly any recordings of him in a normal, offstage situation, not a lot of people know what his real voice actually sounded like. According to my research, there's only one recording of a truly private conversation that was recorded without his knowledge and without his approval. It was at the birthday party of a Finnish commander-in-chief called Mannerheim that Hitler attended, and the sound engineer, who was supposed to record the official part of the party, simply kept recording when Hitler and Mannerheim were speaking in private afterwards. And suddenly, Hitler sounds like any other person speaking regular standard German with maybe a slight influence of Austrian.
Dann musste diese riesige Umstellung unserer Divisionen vom Westen nach dem Osten vorgenommen werden. Erste Besetzung dann hatten wir in Norwegen diese Aufgabe. Im selben Augenblick kam ein, ich darf es heute ruhig sagen, sehr großes Unglück über uns, nämlich die Schwächen, die sich in Italien ergeben hatten durch erstens die nordafrikanische Situation, dann zweitens durch die Situation in Albanien, Griechenland.
As you can tell, there's no over-enunciating, no shouting, obviously, and no overly rolled R. In fact, throughout this whole recording, I only heard him roll his R's a few times, which is interesting because a lot of people also believe that his rolled R was simply due to his Austrian dialect, since that's where he was born. But from what I've read, he actually tried to suppress the Austrian influence in his speech and wanted to sound as standard German as possible, so I think it makes much more sense that rolling the R's in his speeches was very much a conscious decision. Also, in many Austrian dialects, the R isn't actually rolled to begin with, and as I said, in this recording, he hardly does it. What also stands out to me here is that his voice sounds a lot deeper than in his speeches, where it's often pretty high, probably from all of the pressure and screaming, which has also become part of the typical Hitler stereotype.
Sie werden kein Wort darüber verlieren. Kein einziges Detail.
So it's safe to say that Hitler left a mark on how the German language is perceived internationally to this day. Aside from original footage of him, his speech style also lives on in countless reenactments of him in movies and comedy.
Nein, 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 nein! Niederträchtiger, treuloser Feigling! Das Stucken mit der Hürde, ein Stucken mit der Hölle!
I say what an honor it is to meet an officer who has sacrificed so much for Germany.
And over time, that speech style was even assigned to other characters, simply because they were German.
I want you to meet your son.
Scott! Wie kommen Sie dazu? Sie so bringen? Das sind Amerikaner?
Of course, I'm not trying to say with this video that German is an inherently beautiful language and Hitler is the only reason for its rather poor reputation. Compared to other languages like French, Spanish, or Italian that are generally considered very pleasant-sounding melodic languages, German definitely sounds a lot less smooth by nature. We do have quite a few harsh sounds in our language, such as the uvular R, the CH sound, or and German words also often contain a series of consonants without a single vowel in between, like in jetzt, or Pfütze, or Schweiß, or even worse in a compound word like Angstschweiß. However, before the 20th century, German actually had a rather good reputation. For a long time, it was mainly known as the language of poets and thinkers, the language of literature. Starting with Gutenberg, who invented the letterpress in the 15th century, to Martin Luther creating the first widely spread translation of the Bible, to the famous fairy tale collection of the Brothers Grimm, to writers like Goethe, Schiller, and Thomas Mann, and philosophers like Kant and Nietzsche. And it's also, to this day, the second most commonly used language in science. But ever since World War I, and definitely World War II, that aspect of our language and many other parts about Germany and the German culture have simply taken a backseat. And looping back to the beginning, for a lot of people, the first thing that pops into their head when they think of German is a loud and aggressive sounding language, similar to how Hitler and other Nazi officials spoke during their propaganda speeches. Now, of course, I'd like to hear what you guys think of this topic. Was this the image you had of the German language growing up? Or do you think I'm giving Hitler a little too much credit here? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll also link a few related articles and videos in the info box. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out some of my other videos as well, and don't forget to subscribe. We're super close to 400,000 subscribers. And if you would like to support the work I put into my videos, you can buy me a coffee, for example, or in my case, a chai latte or matcha latte, actually, as of recently, on Ko-fi.com. You can leave a tip through that super thanks button down below, or join my Patreon community where you can message me, help me pick up my video thumbnails when I can't decide, and get access to my next monthly live stream this Sunday. So I hope I'll see you there or here on my channel for the next video. Tschüss!